this is kind of where I'm going to say news or noise. Okay, I'm gonna hit a few hot button items that seem to have been in the news a lot lately, and I'm gonna kind of give you my quick take on whether I think they are a relevant news item or just noise that's getting your attention. I'm gonna start with Biden, the previous vice president. He's been getting a lot of attention because of his recent accusation received from a lieutenant governor in Arizona who said that she was made to feel very uncomfortable by Biden's odd behaviors that now seem to be far more prevalent than not. I'm going to go ahead and give this one kind of a mixed bag. This is both news and noise. The actual events themselves is noise. This is something that stirs emotion. It's like what are the magazines, whatever they are, that follow the celebrities. None of this stuff is relevant, but people are interested in it. So it sells ad space. That's what the news companies are in business to do. If you are in a news media outlet of some form or another, at the end of the day, most of your bills are ultimately paid by whether or not you can keep your viewers' attention. And if you can keep their attention, that's relevant because then you can use that when you suggest to whoever it may be to advertise or to place their endorsement in your program. Something that I am curious to see, I'm speculating here, but when you're looking at the established Democratic Party, to think that they don't have sway and influence, you'd be fooling yourself. Whether this is well articulated and kind of puppeteered from the very top, it's not likely. But what is likely is that from a higher up position, there has certainly seemed to have been a request issued to focus the attentions of the Democratic Party in an effort to ensure that they actually have a consolidated, focused effort that can compete against Trump in the 2020 elections. The biggest complaint against Howard Schultz when he began running as an independent was this shot from the very left side of the political spectrum saying, how dare you run as an independent? You doing this is actually taking votes away potentially from who could unseat Donald Trump. The more candidates you have who represent the different fringes, if they're all somewhat on the same similar guideline where they're representing the same thing, you have a bunch of them, it separates your voting base. And that's why parties only want one candidate running for the presidency. That's why they don't want two or three. They're looking to focus the attention. If you've already seen Tulsi Gabbard, she's been taking shots left and right. And honestly, from what little I do know about her, anyone who's centrist would actually have a very, very compelling reason to potentially support her. And you're seeing the Democratic Party effectively get her out of the public eye, be it through, let's say defamatory measures or some other method. You're also starting to see some ultra left-wing, very progressive journalists and others start taking kind of jabs at some of the candidates in ways that I find very interesting. These are all kind of character assassinations. And again, I don't think that these are purposefully organized by this one central in command. But I do think that when you see this party start to kind of eat their own, it's not that they're eating their own because they're in disarray. There's probably a more coordinated effort there, and that's something to be aware of. The Republican Party did the exact same thing in 2016, and I'm not saying that they did it better, worse, or for better reason or for worse reason or whatever. The point is, though, it happens, and if I have what used to be common sense, or what we're told used to be common sense that just doesn't seem so common anymore, I want to look at it as, okay, what's maybe driving this? What's actually going on behind the scenes? And that's a high probability, high possibility. All right, item number 2 on the list. We talked about Biden. Again, a little bit of news, mostly noise, though. The news is more indirect. Item number 2, Jussie Smollett, this whole episode out of Chicago. Hands down noise. across the board noise. If there is any news to be derived from this, it's going to be watching the potential engagement between Michelle Obama and the state prosecutor. She recused herself from the case. The charges are dropped. It's political theater. It gets people riled up, and it is divisive in its nature. It is polarizing, and that's what a political agenda seeks in order to rally the troops, in order to get people excited again. My short opinion of it is, if in fact everything that was found to be true is in fact true, it is a smack in the face to people who actually do have incidents with others who are just idiots. I mean, there's no other way to put it. People who are so insecure in themselves, or so unfortunately disillusioned because of how they were brought up, or whatever their reason being. There's plenty of reasons why people have hatred. Some of it is actually, it's just ingrained in the nature of humans. Humans they tend to, lean towards favoring themselves over others, and themselves might extend to people that are just like them. It's noise. It gets people riled up. Don't pay attention to it. Try to avoid it at all costs, in fact. If there's any news that's going to come from it, you'll find out about it. Don't worry. Ukraine. I didn't think that we'd be talking about Ukraine again since the annexation of Crimea event that seemed like sole focus of things back in, I want to say 14. I think that's when that was. You've kind of been able to keep Ukraine sort of on the quiet back burner. Ukraine immediately ties to Russia, and that's going to bring another country into the fold, which is Venezuela. These are all newsworthy. The triad, the Russia, Ukraine, and Venezuela, for some reasons that they share and some reasons that are completely unique to each one. The reason I mention Ukraine, they do have this election going on. They do have this candidate who seems to be building a pretty strong campaign. He very well make it through the primaries, or what they're calling it. It's their equivalent of a primary. The guy's an actor. He played a school teacher on a show that, from what I understand, somehow or another, he became the president because he sort of satirically ran on a platform of not being spoiled by all the corruption that occurs in a lot of the Eastern Bloc countries due to the oligarchs and a lot of the influence spheres that play so heavily into their political environment. Let's be honest, we have our own equivalents in the States, but this guy he's kind of this actor that plays this thing, and now all of a sudden he's kind of doing this thing. He's running for president, and not only is he running for president, he's running on a party that was created by the producers of the TV show that he starred in. So they made a show basically that became reality. That's more noise, but the news element of it is you're also seeing a lot of attention getting paid to, because of the world we live in. We live in this digital age. We live in this very connected world. We live in a world where the screens dominate our lives. Here I am. I'm talking to you by way of a screen. I am a nobody. Let's just say this gets shared 1 billion times over. Now all of a sudden I became somebody instantaneously. I became a star. Do I have any qualifications? Maybe, maybe not. But the point is that a lot of people can now see me. Well, that's not untrue for television. It's been that way since, really TV's made it into the home. The movies, Ronald Reagan, he was an actor. Let's not forget these things. But in today's world, you're definitely seeing that the people that can get a public platform on these digital interfaces, they get a lot more support than people who are remarkably qualified for their roles. Trump might be one. Some would argue this is pure populism. It's not necessarily just populism. It says something about the inherent nature, I think, of a voting population who, when given the choice, and you can look at all the different cognitive biases, there is an inherent desire for more attractive versus less attractive. There's an inherent bias towards familiarity, people that you've at least been exposed to before. So when you start to see this stuff rise, it has to be something that you pay attention to. That has to be news to you, because if people can be more aware where they might fall prey to their own kind of mental weaknesses, they then are able to kind of step back from that decision that they are inclined to make based on just sort of this sort of gut reaction. And they can say, wait, why is it again that I'm interested, or why am I actually voting for this person? Is this actually going to benefit my life as a voter? Maybe not. But you look at this AOC, Alexandria Ocasio, however she says her name. I've never met her. She may be a very kind, very nice person. I don't know. But her political character, the role that she plays in this movie called American Politics, she is an idiot, okay? But she got a lot of support. And part of it has to do with the fact that she is young and smart enough to use these channels that get you in front of people regardless of what your message is. So we could have commentary all day long about how maybe this is our fault, that we get what we ask for because we don't actually ask for good quality. We ask for something that's either familiar, fun, cool, or maybe it's all included in one big package. And for some people, that's the way Trump is. But what we watch in Ukraine, what we see going on there, it kind of has, it doesn't reek of the same thing that we went through, but it has some similar sense. Okay, so I mentioned Venezuela. What does Venezuela have to do with Ukraine? Naturally, Russia. That's one that the whole episode going on in Venezuela is curious to me. I'm not ready to draw a conclusion yet. I don't know enough. I'm starting to finally see making mainstream news the other side of the story. We're hearing about the blackouts. We're hearing about the, socialism gone awry. If you're of the mindset that I am, that a free market is the optimal market in that it will make the decisions that need to be made by virtue of being free. If you have one specific party, person, individual, whatever, who's dictating how everyone else must operate, the idea that particular individual, group, whatever it is benevolent inherently, there's no possible way, because the human is prone to err. There is no individual person or collection of people who will be perfectly benevolent, perfectly altruistic, perfectly sound and rational in their efforts. So when you get socialism, it's typically going to fail. In the case of Venezuela, it is failing. It has failed. But what's not necessarily clear to me is what's actually happening there. There is a very strong case that can be made that this is either proxy, where it's an effort to engage Russia without engaging Russia, or is this perhaps an opportunity to kind of lay the American claw down on another potential oil engagement? Venezuela has oil, plain and simple. So when you start to see all these concerns and, is aid being given, is it being, are military efforts being deployed, where's the incentive? It's possible. It's possible. I'm not saying it's probable. I'm not saying it's certain. It's possible, though. Is this as bad as it's being made out to be? I don't know. As we've seen with a lot of the American influence in oil-rich nations, we find out after the fact that there was a little more to the story than what we were presented when we all got riled up and said, we must go do what we do best. America saves the world. This may not be the best opportunity to go save another country. This may be the best opportunity to go do something else. Oil. Okay, so then where does Russia?